Yeah, thanks, Dan. So when we're talking about, why is Teamcenter good for your SolidWorks designer with SolidWorks, one, as Dan alluded to earlier, it becomes your single source of truth. So you get to take advantage of the large portfolio that is Teamcenter. So one of the basic functionality is, you know, your vaulting or your getting control of your data. So this may be your CAD data, document data that's being produced by other people in the organization. You get to collaborate with other people using the visualization tools, the automated processes that are built into the system, but mainly it's bringing in all these different points of data stakeholders together within one single one single database and one unified program to manage your data. Now, one of the other things that's interesting too is, we're going to be concentrating on taking a look at the SolidWorks integration into Teamcenter, but Teamcenter being CAD agnostic, it is also able to integrate into a variety of different CAD packages out there. So when we say truly collaborative with truly collaborative environment within an organization, many organizations may have more than one CAD package or electrical packages too. So part of the growth of Teamcenter and your investment comes into that we can plug into various different programs. Now with the SolidWorks integration, it works great because it streamlines the process of creating the data and managing the data, and you'll be seeing that here later on in the presentation. But to start off with, we'll be taking a look at how your data looks and feels inside of Teamcenter. So how it functions, how it's presented to the end user. We're going to be taking a look at a couple of key different points. One, how we navigate, the user navigation through the system within the UI, the HTML UI. We're doing some searching, and we'll take a look at some of the visualization tools that are available to us in Teamcenter. So let's go ahead and fire that up real quick. Okay, so let's take a look at the actual Teamcenter over here as well. So let's go ahead and log in and clean up the workspace here. So as I log in, I've got a username and credentials that's determined by the system admin. Here I have access to certain parts of the database. So the data is safe and my access is controlled by my credentials. Right now, I am part of the engineering group, but I'm also part of the manufacturing and DBA group. So depending on the access that you're given, the data is behind a password and it's secured, and it's determined by policies and practices. Here you can see this is my workspace. Okay, I've got an inbox. All these tiles that you see over here are customizable and movable. I can also add new shortcut links too. So just depending on how you wish to set up your environment right here, you can tailor this for either a specific role or your particular preference as you work within the database. As you can see, that I've got an inbox. We'll touch down that here in a little minute when we go into like change management and things like that. But for right now, let's go over here to the search area. This is how we access our data. If we don't have it inside of a folder structure, we don't have it pinned here. The very first thing you would do is start searching. In this particular instance, I'm just going to search for anything inside the database. Okay, and here I just want to give you an insight of how things are presented to you with the actual search menu, with search function. Over here, I've got my search results. So quite a few different parts in here. And I've also given my results in a graphical form. So if you can see here, I've got multitude of files. For right now, I've got pretty much non-CAD data. I've got a filter over here, which I can apply to that data as well. So say I wanted to find all my, say, SolidWorks parts. I can click on a filter that would automatically show me that data as well. So let me come in here. I've got assemblies. You can customize this list as much as you want. So in this particular instance, let's take a look at all my SolidWorks files per se. So down here, I've got about 13. And this is the way you would probably search your regular file system. You know, if you're going hunting through folders, you would go find the actual SolidWorks part and then trace back to see where the assembly was. Teamcenter works a little bit differently because we rarely even go to the actual part, but since Teamcenter is a relational database, I want to show you how quickly we can get to the other pieces of information that we want and that we actually want to access. So if I take a look at this little wheel, this little Lego wheel, I get a little preview box, but this is the actual SolidWorks parts. You can see it right here. It's listed. Okay, I've got an identifier number on it and everything, but more importantly, it automatically shows me where this is being used or where this component is attached or related to. And it's attached to a revision. So let's go ahead and pop that open. Okay, so we look at this revision. I've got a property card that's listed over here, and it's got it's got my Teamcenter ID number. You can think of this as a part number, but more importantly, it shows my revision A. So so this is my controlled part inside of Teamcenter. It's keeping track of my revision history, and it's a part that came from SolidWorks. I get a preview and it looks like a safety data sheet. So I'm going to go see what's attached to this item revision. You can think of this data, this little piece of data and this item revision as a container. Okay, it's holding all the data that helps describe this particular wheel. In this particular instance, I have a SolidWorks part. I've got a direct model, which is a JT file or a 3D rendering of the part, so I can actually view this component piece outside of SolidWorks. And then I've got two PDFs. You saw one of them previewed in the overview tab. So if we come back over here, I can take a look at the extra piece of data that's associated with this wheel. Again, we're not searching through other drives. Everything's centralized and located on this one particular server. So single source of truth, right? I can find everything I need to find about this wheel into pretty much this one screen here. If I flip through, I can take a look at the first PDF. Here's the second PDF. Say there's multiple data sheets. There could be assembly instructions. Here's the 3D rendering of the part. So the system automatically renders this out inside this. Of course, we're still looking at a web page, right? So I don't need another client. You don't need a SolidWorks license, and I can render out a 3D rendering of the complete part. So as I cycle through this, even through this overview, I can see all the pieces of data that are attached to it. Okay. If I needed to go in a little closer to the visualization side, I got a 3D tab. What can I do here? Well, I can leverage some of my visualization tools. So if I needed to say measure some components, I can measure them out. So say I needed give me a distance between 2 points. I could also take a snapshot, leave it there. I can forward on that extra piece of information. Say I needed to get like a surface area, anything like that. I could quickly do it through this interface right here outside of engineering. So say a different department or different stakeholders needed to grab information off the data that was inside of Teamcenter. They can quickly access that data through this one simple interface. Okay, so multiple entry points to your data and able to find what I need to find. A little more graphical way of doing things too is we can take a look at our relations that are applied to this. So again, we saw this over the attachments. There's my SolidWorks part, my PDFs, and my direct model. But where else is this little wheel being used? Where is my data being? How can I leverage Teamcenter to give me the information I need about my data? So if I track this up the tree, I can see that hey, there's an assembly that it's part of, and I can open this up. I can open up in a new tab, get extra information. So this particular instance, there's an assembly associated with this. Okay, and it's apparently a little axle assembly. I'm given a BOM view. I can toggle off some visual cues and some visual settings, and I can take a look at the entire BOM list. Here I got a couple, there's an axle and 2 wheels and a block, right? I can pull up information, say metadata information, part number. You could also include here lot location, effectivity dates, fully customizable as well. I can pull up a 3D rendering of this assembly. It's fully interactive. And then, of course, I can using the same visualization tools that I've used with the single part, I can apply to an assembly part. So as you can see here, I've got a rendering of the assembly. I can select components. It'll highlight over here in my BOM view list. I can hide components. So somebody without a CAD license can quickly get visual information based off of the JT file that was saved. But more importantly, they can access that data. So if we take a look at back at our relation tab over here, okay, so within this BOM structure, this has to belong to something else too, right? So I can look at the things that are feeding into this, and there's my top level assembly. There's a little Lego truck. So if I open this, I can get the full listing of all the piece part components, everything that makes up this little Lego truck. Of course, I do have I can render this out as well, but more importantly, I've got all the part components that go along with this. I can collapse the tree and get the same information, and I can take a look at everything else that I had. Okay. Quickly accessing the data is very important, and Teamcenter helps facilitate that. So switching back and reviewing real quick, your data, is fast and easy to access through a web browser. It's secured because it is a named user environment, and because it's going to be tied into, say, your SolidWorks. The BOM views and the data that's being portrayed is up to date because it's being fed in directly from other people that are connected to the database. It's constantly being up to date. And you can leverage the tools within Teamcenter to get to the data that you're looking for, regardless if you have a SolidWorks a CAD license or not. So everything's one central spot and becomes your single source of truth. Moving right along, let's actually take a look at the SolidWorks and Teamcenter interfaces. Okay, so now we get to see how those item revisions and the data gets placed into Teamcenter with the connection with SolidWorks. There's a lot of benefits of having the integrated client, and you'll see those here in the presentation coming up. Mostly, the access to Teamcenter is going to be universal. The way that you just saw, say, somebody from marketing and management access the database, you get that same experience from SolidWorks as you work through a quick little, as we take a look at the interface. And everything is automated. So let's go ahead and take a dive into what that looks like. So going back to Active Workspace, let's go ahead and open up one of these part components here. I'm going to go with this bucket now. This bucket we're going to use later on in our demonstration for change management. You can see here though, we're going to go ahead and open it up in SolidWorks for now. So the integration piece, you'll see it disappeared. This page over here disappears. The other one loads. So there we go. So what we do is we have our own little tab. It's right here, built into the right flyout window. It's our integration, and it pulls information to and from Teamcenter. So I pretty much opened this part out of the Active Workspace interface and went ahead and downloaded it over here to my session. I get instant feedback on information that's coming out of Teamcenter. So any attributes, anything that metadata that may be entered over there or could be entered inside of SolidWorks. We have mapping that goes back and forth. One thing I do see is that this model has been released. And what that means is that the history has been preserved for my revision A. So there's a Rev A with all those files, with like a SolidWorks file, a JT file, and it's been frozen in its current state, read only. So this could be released either going into production, or we could release it for developmental purposes. In this case, if I needed to make a change on this later on, I can do that directly here from the interface. So I have tools that I can work with, either using the menu ribbon or the commands that are listed over here on the right hand side. I can go ahead and save as a new revision. So I can tell Teamcenter directly from SolidWorks, like, hey, I need to go ahead and create a new rev level of this particular part. So I can bump up the rev level. The integration is going to get and take care and automate the process of creating my new item revision, my new container, along with my SolidWorks file, uploading it to Teamcenter, and then creating my JT file. So that's one of the benefits of having this integration piece and speeding up your process of design work. The engineer, all he has to do is just got to go through his normal routine. Is going in and saving a file, and the file gets saved back up into the database automatically. It's all automated. Nothing needs to be created again on the standpoint of the engineer. And then if he needs to access the database side of SolidWorks, this is the same UI that you saw on the HTML side. So when the engineer is working with Teamcenter, regardless if he's in and out of the program, he can still access the database. Convenience and streamlining things. He doesn't have to jump out of SolidWorks to do any tasks that he needs to get done inside of Teamcenter. So here we look for the bucket that we just revised. And you can see that there's the revision B. If I look at the attachments, I have a new SolidWorks part and a new direct model, which would be the JT file. Okay, so SolidWorks and the integration into Teamcenter took care of creating all that for me. If I look back, there's my Rev A. Okay, so it's intact and it should still have it still has its own data sets. And then later on, when we make a change, you'll see the data sets change for this one. And we did that all through opening the part from Active Workspace into SolidWorks. Now let's take a look at, say either you created a part outside of Teamcenter, or you've got a part that you want to bring in and upload to Teamcenter. So either one, if you design this from scratch, the same thing, same workflow works. So here I've got a part, okay, and I've placed it into what I call my default workspace. This is where all the files come in that get downloaded from Teamcenter. I can go ahead and open up the file. So right now it's not managed in Teamcenter, it's just in my local cache. Okay, and it's just one that I downloaded off the internet, but again, this could be a file that you created yourself or want to import into Teamcenter. And the workflow to get into Teamcenter is pretty darn easy. I just have to come over here to the save button and tell Teamcenter that, hey, I want to create a new part. I can give it a Teamcenter ID number if I want. It'll run through and give it its own, it's got a number generator. Give it a rev level, and then I can input metadata. So I can tell it, so this is a pump. I can give it unit of measure if I had any, if I need to add any extra notes, or if we included any custom properties, I could add those in. So I'm just gonna put my initials here. I can include those, and these get transferred back and forth into Teamcenter. So that mapping file I talked about earlier. But again, the integration is going to go ahead and take care of creating this container for me. It's going to create the item revision, create my my files, upload those to Teamcenter, and have those available for either myself or the rest of the engineering group that can go in and search for those. Okay, and I will go ahead and let me go ahead and show you that here inside of Active Workspace. So let's search for the pump I just uploaded. Take a look. Here we go. And there it is, uploaded directly into Teamcenter. So you can see here, it's revision A. It automatically went ahead and created my item revision, added my SolidWorks part, and linked up my direct model. So everything is here. And depending on the save features, you notice it disappeared out of my workspace, but I mean out of my current session, but it's still over here in my workspace. So if I just need to open it up, I can open it up too. There's different tools available to us also within the integration fee. So not just save, we can go and do a mass save all. So if we have multiple components open, We can also do save as. So instead of creating a revision, we can create clones, part files, and assemblies. And the same principle applies for part files, drawing files, assembly files. You have full control of each one of the files. And again, I said it's fully embedded, fully integrated, and you have the best of, the active workspace client inside of SolidWorks. You can access the data, get to the data that you're looking for. Again, the quicker you can locate your data and get to work on it, the more streamlined your processes become. So that's a look at the SolidWorks integration. Let's take a look at the benefits real quick. So let's review. The benefits you get from the SolidWorks integration into Teamcenter is that one, you'll be able to connect your session of SolidWorks into Teamcenter and securely vault your data directly from your CAD application. The other one is the automated tasks between uploading the files into Teamcenter, whether you're doing a new part, your save as, your revisions. The integration piece takes care of putting the correct file in the correct location, creating the reference links, and then even possibly doing the translations like you saw with the JT file that was created or the direct model. Mainly also too is the engineer can stay within SolidWorks and do his everyday tasks, opening files, create files. And in the next example you'll see is how he can initiate and participate in workflows directly in from SolidWorks because of the active workspace integration that's available. So with that, let's take a look at change management. So what change management does is it leverages workflows inside of Teamcenter. Workflows are captured business processes that have been added to the system. There's some out-of-the-box ones that we can use. They can be complex or they can be pretty simple processes. But what they do is they help drive the change to all the stakeholders that need to participate, say in a approval process, a engineering change notice, change order. It's all available to you inside of Teamcenter. What we'll look at it again is a simple example of making a change to the revision of the bucket that we created earlier. We're going to make a change to it, then we're going to get a couple of sign-offs. So you'll see how the CAD data is attached to it and how it goes around to each one of the stakeholders within a Teamcenter secured environment. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example of that right quick. Okay, so let's take a look at how change is processed inside of Teamcenter. Here we've got David logged in, and he received a file, more like a PDF, on a little change or what we call an issue report. Okay, he got it through an email, uploaded to Teamcenter, pretty much stating that we need to make a change to that the bucket that we revised earlier, pretty much placing a hole in one side of the actual bucket itself. So this was produced by somebody else in the organization, and either we can email it to David via Outlook, we could transmit it inside of Teamcenter. But you can see this PDF is inside of Teamcenter. It gives us a part number and gives us a kind of a course of action to go to. So the first thing I need to do is find that part, and I know it's part of the bucket, and I've got a part number there, so I can either look for part number wise, search for bucket, search for any context clues, but I quickly find that revision that I'm looking for. Okay, and the revision pops up. Here we go. There's that little portion there, and I know I've got to make a couple of changes to this. So one thing I want to do is probably mark this up. So one thing I can do is use some of the tools inside of the visualization here, and I can quickly get a quick image grab. This is going to be the change for the drain hole. Description. Let's see, one of the things we're going to add the drain and change the color up. change the color. Okay, and I can go ahead and grab a quick little image grab of that. And then once I got the image grab, I can go ahead and place some markups on it. So let's take a look at that process. So what we'll do is we'll go over here and switch over to a larger workspace. Let's go ahead and take a look at that image here. And I can go into my markup panel and say, you know what, let's go ahead and freehand. I know we're going to add a hole right there. And let's put a little arrow. If we don't like it, we can use our little hand tools, but it usually snaps. You notice that it'll go ahead and correct itself. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to add a comment. Okay, we need to add a hole here for drain and go through both sides. I can go ahead and create that right there. Now this helps communicate some of the other, what was written on that document. So now when I pass this over to the engineer, it's going to create actually make the change to this. He can have multiple pieces of information, and I'm communicating over to the rest of the stakeholders what's about to happen too. So got to create a markup layer. So now what I need to do is go ahead and submit it to a workflow. Again, a workflow is just a captured business process that's been added to Teamcenter. So it's repeatable. Everything is inside of the database. So data is not leaving anywhere. So the stakeholders within the company, we can pass this information around, and everything is secure. Here we're just going to add a change request. And we're adding a drain hole and then changing the color. See reference PDF. Okay, in our references, we can go ahead and attach our PDF to it. Okay, so more information, the better. Then over here, what we can do is we can go ahead and assign who's going to make the change. And that would be myself. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I can have somebody who's going to review my changes. And I think that's going to be Ed over here. I can do this ad hoc on the fly, or I can go ahead and have a resource pool or assignment list already done, and that would speed up this process. We could also pull multiple people, so we can send it to a group, and then from there, whoever has access to it first can go ahead and make that change. Usually, we can also have a quorum. There's also different settings that we could use, but you can see here it's been submitted into the workflow, and it's going to go into the inbox of the first person. It's gonna make them facilitate either review the change, the workflow order, or implement that change. So in this case, it's going to be me. So what I'm going to do is let's switch over and take a look at what it looks like over here. As you can see, I've got a new task waiting for me, and it's a sign off. So these are some older ones. This is what I'm looking for because this is my change request. So if I look at my change request, add a drain hole, change the color of the bucket, see the PDF. So if I want to look at the attachments, I've got direct access to those attachments and I can view those. If I needed to view those real quick. There's that. There's the PDF. All right. Let's go back to the sign-offs. I could go ahead and take a look at the markups as well. In case I need to get, diving in, making sure I make all the changes, correct changes that need to be made. I can bring that up. Go ahead and show the markup. Okay, that's the note that David made. Place the hole right here. Okay. So now what I can do is I can just go ahead and open this up inside of inside of SolidWorks and get to work. So open that up. And collapse that back down. There we go. There we go. Cool. So now we can proceed on making our change. So I'll go over here to the corner and just drop in a circle and then make sure I got it checked out. I can make changes. So that's a good handy little device to have. There we go. And I'm going to put a hole or about right here. Make my change. One of the changes and make it green. Okay, so now that we have this, let's go ahead and save it. And let's go ahead and save these changes back up in the Teamcenter. Okay, model's been checked in. Okay, you notice it turned green here. So I know that I've completed the whole, two, the part. So now I can go back over here to my overview tab and say, hey, guess what? Changes. Good to go. And it's off to the next person. So let's go check out Ed's environment real quick. Hey, here we have Ed. Now Ed could be in the same office, separate office. It could be in the airport checking the status on Teamcenter. He would get an email notification, going in Outlook, saying, "Hey, he needs a task to perform." As long as he has a direct connection to our server, which could be located either on-prem or on the cloud. But here you go take a look at, okay, why was this change made? We had to have the drain hole. You could do all the same information that I could as a designer. So there's my PDF. He could review all those. Once he makes that decision, it's like, okay, where's it going? What's the history behind this? Well, Dave initiated the workflow. I implemented the change. Now it's his turn to either do the sign off, reject it back, which is also a possibility. It could come back, say the work wasn't completed all the way. But again, the process is repeatable over and over and recorded by the system. Each one of the steps is recorded. So he can say it looks good and give it an approval. Okay, after it leaves his inbox, let's just go take a look at it. Let's look for bucket. And we'll see that there's a new status flag on this. So there's an icon. This is our status flag. It's now exited the workflow. Okay, it's been released. Okay, so there's some sort of release on it. This could be developmental release. This could be out for production, but you can see there's the hole. Okay, if we look at we can go back later and take a look at, all the steps that were involved. But yeah, this is now Rev B of the component. There is a Rev A. So at any time we can go back to Rev A without the drain hole. There's my Rev B, and each one of these will have its own attachments. So the history is maintained for both my Rev B, and if I needed to take a look, my Rev A, it still has its attachments and the original file. So my history is saved in case I ever want to go back and take a look. Why do we change it? Who do we change it? The change has been made and recorded, and all the stakeholders that were involved got the information, how they needed to participate in their workflow. And with that, let's go ahead and switch over and take a look at some of the benefits that we can get from Teamcenter and change management. One of them is, of course, the workflows are all electronic and the change is managed through Teamcenter. All the data that you're dealing with can be imported into the database, and all the stakeholders are accessing a secure database regardless of what their location is. Remember, this is all HTML based, so Could have people on site, off site, just as long as they have a secure connection to your data center, they can access Teamcenter. The information, we include as much information as possible. All that information got to the appropriate stakeholders, and they would make precise, quick decisions and implement the change that was needed. So, with that, that concludes this portion of the demonstration, and I will throw it back over to Dan.